Have you ever been warned not to open a suspicious link or email because you were told it was a scam? Most of us have probably been told that at one point in our lives, and as we received precaution that one time, we probably brushed it off the next because we didn't really know what that entailed. Think of it this way. If scammers have access to your information, they can see your credit card info as well as your medical history, and that in itself is terrifying, as this could happen to any individual, any corporation, big or small, at any given time. A prime example of this is when Equifax, a credit card report company, faced a mega breach and lost over 143 million U.S. consumers' data, and it exposed their names, addresses, their social security number, credit card info, and even their driver's license information, according to Wired September 12, 2019 edition. In today's digital age, as technology is rapidly advancing, so is the sophistication of digital threats to one's company. And although there is not one solution to solving cyber breaching altogether, there are precautions individuals and companies can utilize in order to minimize their chance of getting cyber breached. And it's just important for individuals to be aware of what cyber breaching is so that they can keep a lookout for any signs and just to be prepared if it were to happen to them. Today I'll be talking to you about the problems, causes, and solutions of cyber breaching. First, let's talk about the problems of cyber breaching. Now, this topic can obviously, the issues lying here can obviously be seen with the companies involved as well as the consumers in terms of their money and their reputation. Reputation-wise, obviously individuals will be more reluctant into trusting that company again with withholding their information, and it's just hard to come back from a type of scandal like that, as individuals will be aware that that company has faced a cyber breach in the past. And according to Medical Economics February 10th, 2019 edition, it states that if a company is cyber breached, they actually, the name of the company actually gets permanently published on the Office of Civil Rights Wall of Shame, where the name, the offense, and the number of individuals affected get posted. And in addition to that, Property and Casualty 360 March 27, 2019 edition also states that data breaches cost companies $2.86 million on average, and this can skyrocket to $350 million. In that case, it would be considered a mega breach. And there's obvious reasons as to how this affects consumers, as they are, as their information has been leaked, and that thought alone is just unsettling, and it just makes them unsure of how to move forward with other companies and which ones they can trust and which ones they can't. Cyber breaching can not only be seen within companies but also affecting individuals on the daily. With the telephones that we use on a daily basis, it makes it easy for hackers to get into our iCloud and steal our information like credit card info, photos, videos, and anything that we just put on our phone willingly. And according to the Flare November 30th, 2019 edition, it states that these hackers can actually steal our photos and videos and sell them on the internet, and this can be more seen with celebrities as it's more publicized. But like I mentioned, this can happen to anyone, especially with online shopping. We give our credit card and address information willingly to these companies, and they might not be as trustworthy as we think. Now that I've talked to you about the problems of cyber breaching, let's talk about the causes. Now, there are multiple factors that contribute to this ultimate issue. However, their main cause stems from companies choosing not to invest in a safeguard protection program, and they also are just not being committed to their statement that ensures consumers that their identification is protected. According to the U.S. Fed News Service September 12, 2019 edition, it states that a lot of these consumers are unaware that their information is leaked until after the cyber breach, and if a company states to their consumers that their identification is protected, that might only apply to a number of consumers instead of all of them. And also, companies are not held to the they're just not held accountable to the extent that they should be, and they obviously face the repercussions as they choose not to invest their funds into the correct places, ultimately building up their defense against cyber breaches. The companies also overlook the power that employees have, as all of their employees have access to individuals' information. Some ex-employees can actually use that and take it with them wherever they go, and that in itself is due to the lack of regulation that companies have. According to the New Jersey Business February 12, 2019 edition, it states that a lot of enterprises believe that if they don't think that they have valuable information, that cyber hackers won't go for them. However, cyber breaches happen to anyone, like I mentioned, and it doesn't matter the size of the corporation, they will go and get their hands on whatever information they can. Also, the Credit Union Times November 4th, 2019 edition states that a lot of consumers are just not being proactive in limiting their potential exposure to cyber breaches. What I mean by that is a lot of individuals have mixed credit card and debit card information, and they also just open a lot of credit cards in general, making them more susceptible to cyber breaches. And just by doing some online shopping and giving out your information to websites, that also just makes you more vulnerable to cyber breaches happening to you. Now that I've talked to you about the causes, let's talk about the solutions. Now, there's not one solution to ultimately solve cyber breaching completely, but there are, like I mentioned, precautions that we can utilize in order to lessen the impact that these cyber breaches can have on companies as well as individuals. And for example, for companies, if they just run a risk assessment test, they're able to see where their security software has weaknesses, and from there they can strengthen it and build it up against cyber hackers. And just by incorporating and requiring a multi-factor authentication like a fingerprint, a stronger password, or even a security question can also build up their defense against cyber breaches. Also, by making it mandatory for employees to report any cyber breaches, will allow the company to deal with it more effectively, as a lot of employees are actually fearful that they will get penalized if they accidentally click on a suspicious link by accident. And just by incorporating a practice culture where they don't get penalized will make employees just more aware of how to handle it and make companies more prepared. And as individuals, we must be wary of the type of companies we wish to share information with, as we do so on the regular. And just by incorporating longer passwords and different passwords for everything that we associate ourselves with can ultimately limit our chances of getting cyber breached. Obviously, there's some viable options, and today I have shared with you the problems, causes, and solutions of cyber breaching. Now, although there's not one solution to solve it completely, there are ways to strengthen our setup of defense so that we can limit the impact it could potentially have on us, because without that, we would suffer immensely. It's also extremely important that we are educated, as we should reevaluate the places that we choose to share information with, because our information is very valuable and should be protected. So next time you see a suspicious website or email or link, just be very cautious and aware of the repercussions to that, because your information could ultimately fall into the wrong hands.